With the Pokemon GO Wild Area event only 1 week away, I've been preparing and getting myself ready for this insane event. For those of you that have never played a Pokemon Go Fest or a Pokemon Go Tour before, this is supposed to be pretty similar to those. You're basically going to have an entire weekend to play, which means 16 hours of insane spawns, raids, and boosted shinies if you actually decide to purchase the ticket. Which I do strongly recommend because it makes the overall experience just so much more worth it, especially if you're planning on playing the entire weekend. Anyways, with that being said, in this video, I'm going to be going over everything you can start doing now in order to start getting yourself ready for this upcoming event. Now, leading up to this event, there's still going to be plenty of time to go out there and grind some gyms for some extra PokeCoins. Your main focus should be getting more bag space and more Pokemon storage. The more bag space you have, the more Pokeballs you can have in your bag, and the less time you're going to have to actually spend restocking during the event. The more Pokemon storage you have, the less you have to transfer during the event, and the more good Pokemon you can actually keep for trades. Now, for those of you out there who aren't free to play, or maybe you're mostly free to play, I would also recommend putting aside some money from your paycheck to get some PokeCoins for this event. You may want to upgrade your Pokemon storage or your bag, and you may not have that many PokeCoins earned from gyms, so this would actually be a great investment going into this event. 16 hours of potential grind time gets pretty crazy, and before you know it, you're going to have to go through and clear out your Pokemon storage, or you might even run out of Pokeballs. This would definitely kill your momentum during this event. If you can do this free to play, even better, but don't be afraid to spend some money to make your life a little bit easier and less chaotic during a huge event like this. Now, following that, let's go over some premium items you guys want to have for this event, and then after that we'll go over the free to play items you want to have. So first of all, let's go over the incense. Normally during Go Tour and Go Fest, we do get special incense spawns for ticket holders, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case during this event. So for that reason, I'm not going to recommend running your incense the entire time unless you have an excess amount of them. Incense will last the normal duration of 1 hour during this event, which means if you wanted to run them for the entire time, it would be 8 incense each day for a total of 16 incense, essentially 16 hours. Now, the best way to actually get the most out of your incense is going to be if you're actually walking around. If you're going to be stationary, it doesn't really make that much sense to use an incense because you're only going to get spawns every 5 minutes. Where if you're actually walking around at a decent pace, you're going to get spawns every 30 seconds. So I would definitely try to keep that in mind if you're planning on dropping 8 incense right at the start of the event. Like if you know that you're going to stop for lunch somewhere, maybe just drop a few incense and then you can kind of plan out the rest of your day after that. Now following that, let's go over lure modules, which I would recommend having about 10 to 20. So during this event, lure modules are going to be lasting for 2 hours long. This means you guys can actually make some great progress on the Picnicker medal by dropping lure modules at the most popular grind spot right when the event starts, and honestly just throughout the event as well. So you're basically going to get 1 point every single time somebody else catches a Pokemon off your lure module, and during an event like this, there's going to be tons of people playing, depending on where you go. So if you really want to grind out the Platinum Picnicker medal, having about 10 to 20 lure modules is really going to help you out. Plus it's going to be a win-win for your community because they're going to get more spawns during the event as well. Next up, let's talk about Lucky Eggs and Star Pieces and how many you want to have going into this event. So depending on your playstyle, there may be points in the day where you're actually doing high XP or high Stardust activities. This could be like raiding Primal Kyogre and Groudon with a dedicated group, hatching a bunch of 9-10 kilometer eggs at once. Now if you actually purchase the event ticket, you're going to get 5,000 more experience for completing raid battles and 2 times Stardust and 2 times experience from hatching eggs. So it wouldn't really make sense to run Lucky Eggs and Star Pieces during the entire event, but rather during times where you're going to be focused on specific activities. We typically do get 3 times Stardust and 3 times experience bonuses during Calm Day events, so if you're not going to be too focused on anything, it might be better to actually save your resources to grind harder during dedicated events like those. Next up, let's go over incubators and super incubators. So if you decided to purchase the event ticket, you're going to have a lot of hatching bonuses as I just mentioned. Now you can totally use your free incubator during this entire event, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually have a few extra incubators stocked up in order to hatch multiple 10-kilometer eggs at once, and then drop a star piece in order to get a ton of Stardust. I'm usually the biggest advocate against using incubators just due to the hatch pool being terrible most of the time and never getting anything good, but the Stardust gains are going to be too good to ignore, regardless of what you end up hatching. So going into this event, I would recommend having about 10 to 20 combined regular incubators and super incubators. If you have less than that, that's totally fine, and if you have more than that, then more power to you. Moving on, let's take a look at MP packs, which stands for Max Particle Packs. These essentially give you 800 max particles per pack. So while I don't necessarily think you need this, if you actually want to hunt for a shiny GMAX Toxtricity, you will probably want to consider buying some of these from the shop or from the web store. Personally, I'm just going to try and get 1 to 2 of these done with my free MP, and then lucky trade it with somebody else. One of the biggest complaints with the Dynamax system currently is having to power stuff up again, but by utilizing this strategy, you spend minimal resources and get the most out of it. you're essentially min-maxing the Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon, and to be honest guys, I've beat every single one of these raid bosses so far using this strategy. So personally speaking, that's what I'm gonna do, but if you just want to hunt for that shiny Gigantamax form, then by all means, you probably want to have some extra max particles available. Next up, let's talk about premium raid passes, or green raid passes. So if you bought the event ticket, you're going to get 5 free orange raid passes on both days. Now for those of you who are unfamiliar, these are going to be use it or lose it passes, so I would avoid buying more green passes until you actually use these up. But overall, this event is going to be strongly focused on raid battles with a ton of really good Pokemon featured. For example, we're going to have Palkia and Dialga Origin forms with a chance to get them with their exclusive Adventure Effect moves. We're also going to have Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon featured, which are some of the best Mega Evolution Pokemon you guys can have in the game. You're also going to need 400 energy to Mega Evolve them for the first time, and even more Mega Energy if you want to get them to Mega Level 3 as soon as possible. Long story short, you will probably want to stock up on extra raid passes to really take advantage of these Pokemon if you don't already have them. So basically when it comes down to it, I would recommend having at least 20 or more green raid passes available, just so you guys can honestly raid a bunch of these Pokemon. I mean, seriously, you're not going to want to miss them. Now for players who might have other responsibilities this weekend, there's also going to be no limit on remote raid passes. That being said though, these are significantly more expensive than green in-person passes, but they're far more convenient. You can also use apps like PokeGenie to find raid lobbies, and you can also host your own raids from the in-person gyms if you need raid support as well. Now unfortunately, you cannot hold onto these in bulk like the green raid passes. There is going to be a limit of 3 in your inventory. Now most players who do use remote raid passes seem to be fine with the price point, as the convenience factor far outweighs the cost. At the end of the day, it's totally up to you. I can definitely see the value in these, especially with some really good raid bosses out there. But with that being said, that basically covers all the premium items I wanted to go over for this event that I would recommend having. Now let's go over the free items you guys want to have during this event. So first of all, let's go over pineapple berries. Now depending on your playstyle, you may want more or less of these. I would recommend about 25 to 50 going into this event, but after playing through enough events myself, I have realized that I'm usually more focused on quick catching, and that also means not using berries to save more time. The only time that I typically use pineapple berries is to get candy on really rare Pokemon. So when it comes down to an event with 16 hours of spawns, you're most likely going to get enough candy on things that you're going to be focused on just from quick catching alone. This also means more space for Pokeballs if you have less berries, so keep that in mind. Now, if you're not going to be playing around many Pokestops throughout the event, you're probably going to want more of these. But that's pretty much the only exception. If you are going to be playing around Pokestops, don't go into this too berry heavy. We do have a few other berries to go over though that I think are going to be worth having, at least a few. The next one is going to be Nana Berries, and I would recommend anywhere from 25 to 50 of these as well. So you're going to encounter plenty of aggressive Pokemon throughout this event. Some of them are just going to have really crazy difficult catch rates, and basically what Nana Berries do is that they make the Pokemon stop attacking you completely. So if they're being like super feisty, this is going to come in handy a ton. Following that, let's go over Golden Raspberries. I would recommend having at least 50 or more of these. These give you the best catch rate in the game combined with excellent curveball throws, so keep these on hand for those low catch rate Pokemon. I mean, it's going to be really helpful. If they're not attacking you too much, it's probably going to be more beneficial to use these over Nana Berries. I'm assuming that most of you guys are probably going to be raiding throughout the day, which means you're going to continue to restock on Golden Raspberries as well, so going into this event with too many of them can kind of be detrimental because it's going to fill up your bag super quickly. This is the main reason that I recommend having around 50 or more. Like if you have like 200 plus, that's kind of excessive. I wouldn't really have that many. I mean, because you're really not going to use them all, and you're going to get even more throughout the day. So try to keep that in mind. It's more of a balancing act rather than just having as many Golden Raspberries as possible. Now on the off chance, if you're not planning to raid that much and you don't have that many Golden Raspberries either, I would recommend about 20 regular Raspberries at the start of the event. I mean, you're probably going to restock on these as well as you're spinning Pokestops, so I mean, that's like the bare minimum, and then you can at least have something to use to improve your catch rate if you really need to. Next up, let's go over Silver Pineapple Berries. So these should basically be saved for legendary Pokemon only that you want to farm candy on. And like I mentioned earlier, we have plenty of good Pokemon available. These basically have a close catch rate to Golden Raspberries, but they also have an increased candy rate compared to the regular Pineapple Berry. So for a regular Raspberry, it's going to be a 1.5 times catch rate. For Silver Pineapple Berry, it's going to be a 1.8 times catch rate. And then for a Golden Raspberry, it's going to be a 2.5 times catch rate. Now when it comes down to the candy bonuses, for a Pineapple Berry, it's going to be 2 times candy, and then for a Silver Pineapple Berry, it's going to be 2.33 times candy, so a slight bonus. When it comes down to berries, I would say that Silver Pineapple Berries are the rarest of the 5 available, so I mean, if you do have them, only use them on really good Pokemon. Next up, let's go over Max Potions and Max Revives, and basically just Revives and Potions in general. I would say if you don't have Max Potions and Max Revives, Hyper Potions and regular Revives would be the next best option. You can pretty much trash everything else. So basically you're split into two different groups here, right? If you're going to be doing raids throughout the day, especially in like smaller groups, you're going to want to have as many of these as possible. But you can get away using a lot less of these if you plan on raiding in bigger groups. Now I do want to remind you the remote raid limit is going to be removed during this event, so you're probably going to have players out there who are going to be focused on remote raids a ton. So with that being said, I would strongly recommend inviting them to your raids because it's going to be a win-win for both of you. Like on one hand, they're not going to have to wait in raid lobbies, and then on the other hand, you know, you're going to have raid support, and it's also going to mean you're going to have to use less revives and less potions. Either way though, when it comes down to it, if you are having trouble getting these items before this event, I would strongly recommend spinning gym stops, especially ones where you've actually gotten gold gym badges at. These gyms actually have an increased chance to drop revives and potions compared to regular Pokestops. Now finally, let's go over Pokeballs, Ultra Balls, and Great Balls, and yes, I said it in that order for a reason. So first of all, Pokeballs. If you're going to be using an Autocatcher during this event, you want to have as many of these as possible. This basically fuels the Autocatcher if you just have like a standard one. I think if you have the Pokemon GO++, it can also use Great Balls and Ultra Balls, but it's not technically an Autocatcher. You have to click the button every single time. Pokeballs, it'll just do it automatically. Now keep in mind the Autocatcher honestly isn't that good, it's just more of a convenient option, like especially if you're going to be driving from one location to another. Like in terms of the catch rate, it still is a regular Pokeball. It has like the worst catch rate of the three, so I kind of feel like it's dumb when people say that the Autocatcher is OP, because you're like, yeah it is, it's kind of convenient, but I mean, you're kind of have more Pokemon run away, which means probably more shinies run away on you. So if you want to freehand your throws, Ultra Balls are going to be your best bet. Now if you're unable to get that many Ultra Balls available, Great Balls will be your next best option for freehanding. So basically when it comes down to it, have as many Pokeballs as possible if you're going to be using an Autocatcher, and then if you want to be freehanding your throws, have as many Ultra Balls as possible. A good combination of these two can make your event go really smooth. Now I also want to mention this for those of you with less bag space, you know, focus on having more Pokeballs rather than more potions, revives, berries, etc. Like you're going to be focused on catching throughout the day. And yes, potions and revives matter and berries do matter, but like not compared to Pokeballs. Pokeballs should be the #1 thing you focus on stocking up on before this event, if you're limited on bag space. If you have enough bag space, obviously do everything that I recommended, but I understand this is kind of variable for different players. So basically with that being said, that pretty much covers all the items I recommend having for this event. If you feel like I left anything out, let me know in the comment section down below. But now let's go over the fast catch trick and the circle lock method. Most of you probably already know about these catch tricks, but for any newer players watching this, I highly recommend learning these to increase your catching speeds and efficiency. Normally it takes about 18 seconds to catch a Pokemon going through the full animation, but with the fast catch trick, you can actually do it in roughly 5 seconds. So if you want a more in-depth explanation with visual examples of both right and left-handed throws, then click the link on screen right now. Now for the circle lock method, this is a way to consistently land excellent throws, which is super beneficial if you're trying to actually catch a legendary Pokemon from raid battles, and we do have a lot of those. So you essentially want to hold down the Pokeball to set the circle, then you wait for the attack animation, and you time your throw so that it lands right as the attack animation finishes. Knowing these tricks are honestly extremely important for an event like this, so if you still haven't mastered either of them, then check out the video links in the description down below. Now speaking of making your life a little bit easier, I would also recommend getting an Autocatcher if you don't have one already. This is going to be great to run in the background when you're traveling between cluster spawns or when you're just busy with something else, which typically happens throughout an event like this because it's 8 hours of playtime each day. I have been meaning to do a full guide on the various Autocatchers available in Pokemon Go, but for right now I'm just going to recommend the official Pokemon Go++. This can actually auto-catch Pokemon using regular red Pokeballs, and you can also use Great and Ultra Balls by manually pressing the button. In terms of cost effectiveness, it's probably the best bang for your buck out there right now. I don't have any affiliate links or any sponsors or anything like that, so I would recommend just shopping around a bit before buying one. Now following that, let's go over rare candy and what you want to actually use your rare candy on, just to kind of get rid of some bag space here. So with the re-release of Dialga and Palkia Origin forms during this event, some of you may be actually getting access to Roar of Time and Spatial Rend for the very first time. This means if you actually have excess rare candy just sitting in your bag, this would be a great place to dump it. I can tell you from first-hand experience, I have used both of these adventure effects a ton, especially Roar of Time, since the shiny Galarian birds were just released in Pokemon Go a few months ago. Now of course you can also dump these into meta-relevant legendary or mythical Pokemon, and if you want to know which are the best ones to actually put your rare candy into, then check out this video right here. Next up, let's talk about opening gifts every single day leading up to this event. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, you can actually open up to 30 gifts every single day right now. This is going to be the best way to passively collect Pokeballs and berries if you aren't able to go out and spin Pokestops before this event. Although with that being said, I would highly recommend making some time to actually go out and do this. I mean, you're going to want to have as many Pokeballs as possible going into an event like this. Even with all the prep that I do, I usually have to reserve some time after the first day to restock my bag for day 2. For those of you with more bag space out there, you won't need to worry about this as much, but if you have less bag space, it is going to be more of an issue. Now for those of you who don't have that many friends in game, I would strongly recommend going to the Pokemon Go Friends subreddit page and adding a bunch of people on there. Now following that, let's go over the Mega Pokemon for the candy bonuses. So most of the event spawns here are going to be electric and poison type. And thankfully, we did actually have Mega Manectric featured earlier this month, and we're also going to have Mega Ampharos available leading up to this event. So if you are a newer player watching this and you don't have that many Mega Pokemon available, make it a top priority to get this Pokemon at the very least. Then you can at least use it during this event to get even more candy on the Electric-type Pokemon that you do end up catching. Now for the more seasoned players out there, hopefully you guys have actually been working on getting your Mega Pokemon to Mega Level 3, because ideally you want to alternate between Poison and Electric-type Pokemon during this event. They're going to alternate every single hour, so basically having extra energy available on your Megas is going to be ideal if you want to fully take advantage of these spawns. After you have Mega Evolved them for the first time, you can also walk them as your buddy to earn more energy that way for free without actually having to do the raids, which is super convenient. Now since we have Mega Ampharos available in raid battles right now, I would recommend walking your Poison-type Megas like Venusaur, Gengar, and Beedrill. This way you can actually have a more balanced approach going into the event. I mean, again, it depends on what you guys actually want to hunt. Like, if you're just focused on the Poison types, go with the Poison type Mega for the entire day. If you're just focused on the Electric types, then obviously go with the Electric type for the entire day. If you want the best of both worlds, alternate every single hour. Now during this event, we're going to have 6 Pokemon that can evolve into their final stage forms to get their legacy movesets. Those Pokemon are going to be Bulbasaur into Venusaur to get Frenzy Plant, Pidgey into Pidgeot to get Gust, Poliwag to Poliwrath to get Counter, Magikarp to Gyarados to get Aqua Tail, Totodile to Feraligatr to get Hydro Cannon, and then finally Shinx into Luxray to get Psychic Fangs. Now normally you would have to use an Elite TM to get these Pokemon with their exclusive movesets, so do not miss out on this opportunity. I would strongly recommend going through your Pokemon storage to check if you have any of these with good IVs and PvP IVs, and then start to mark them in a search tag. This way when the event starts, you can just evolve them right away. One of the most notable Pokemon here is going to be Feraligatr, which is super meta relevant in PvP right now. Now during this weekend event, the featured Gigantamax Pokemon is going to be Toxtricity. We currently have an event ongoing right now featuring Dynamax Drillbur in max battles. When evolved to Excadrill, this is going to be your best counter against Gigantamax Toxtricity because it actually double resists both of its movesets. Now Dynamax Drillbur is going to be a 1-star max battle, which means you can probably do about 3 to 4 of these every single day for free. You don't even have to power them up or give them their max move upgrades, but just make sure to evolve at least 2 to 3 of these to Excadrill, and TM them to a double ground type moveset, either Mudshot or Mudslap, plus Scorching Sands and Drill Run. If enough people just do this alone, you guys are going to have no problem taking down Gigantamax Toxtricity. Now for those of you who actually decided to purchase this event ticket, you're going to get 5 additional special trades every single day for a total of 6. It would be smart to coordinate with your lucky friends ahead of time in order to actually get these done throughout the day. Now if you don't have any lucky friends, you can also just mirror trade shinies with a friend and hope that it actually goes lucky. If the trade does go lucky, there's going to be a 1 out of 64 chance of rolling a hundo this way, which is actually the best way to get a shundo in game, so do not forget to do your trades if you actually decide to purchase the ticket. You definitely have some pretty good options in terms of trades you guys can get done during this event that would qualify as a special trade. Dialga and Palkia Origin form with their Adventure Effect moves, those are going to be super good to trade, especially if your friends weren't able to get them from raid battles. You also have access to Gigantamax Toxtricity. I would strongly recommend lucky trading at least 1 of these. And there's going to be a bunch of other Pokemon as well too, but you know, those Pokemon specifically you guys can't hunt during this event, so that's why I wanted to mention them. Now following that, let's go over what you guys want to pack in your travel bag for this event. Whether you play for the entire event or just for many hours throughout the entire weekend, it's going to be a lot going on. So what are some things you guys can prep ahead of time? So first of all, I would recommend bringing some quick snacks to keep yourself energized throughout the day, something like protein bars, chips, candy, whatever it is you guys actually need to keep yourself going. Having some meals prepped wouldn't be a bad idea either. This way you guys can just like quickly eat on the go. I typically find sandwiches to be the most effective for these types of events, but again, it totally depends on you and your diet. Also water bottles, definitely make sure to bring water bottles. You can also bring like a hydro flask, which is kind of nice because it actually keeps the water cold throughout the day, but I do find it kind of tedious to carry around throughout the event. If you guys also drive to your grind spot, you can also have a water cooler in your car. This way you can actually just walk back and grab one of the lighter water bottles. I mean, it's a lot easier to carry around than a hydro flask, but it's totally personal preference at the end of the day. I like to keep my hands free so I can focus on catching the entire time. Now, one of the most important things I recommend, you know, even more than the water bottles, is going to be external batteries. I mean, especially if you're going to be playing Pokemon Go, like it's a huge battery drain, guys. And you're going to be playing for multiple hours of the day, you definitely need to have these. Now, personally speaking, I always have 2 of these on me for events like this because it's a huge grind, right? So between an entire weekend of Pokemon Go, there's a strong possibility that you may forget to charge one of them the night before, in which case you're going to be glad that you actually had that second one. At least I always am. Now, I don't have any affiliate links, so just please make sure to do your own research before purchasing them. Now, on top of that, also make sure to have at least 2 charging cables in case one of them actually stops working midday. it's gonna be really great that you actually had a second one. It's happened to me before, and trust me, it really sucked. Now, we talked about the Autocatcher earlier. If you guys actually have one, make sure to pack this ahead of time so you don't forget it. Like, literally going into this event without your Autocatcher ready is a nightmare, especially because there's gonna be so much passive grinding throughout the day. Having this is really, really important in my opinion. If it's gonna be an Autocatcher that requires batteries, for example, like the dual Catchmon requires AAA batteries, make sure to pack some extra batteries in your bag. This is gonna be really good because you never know, it could just die on you for some reason, and that's frustrating to happen as well. If it's going to be cold where you live, make sure to wear warm clothing. It's usually best to dress in layers when it comes down to this, in case it actually gets warmer throughout the day, which it typically does around mid-afternoon, so this way you can actually just remove some and then you can just kind of put them on if it gets colder during the evening. Now finally, the last thing I'm going to recommend is going to be spray-on deodorant. You guys are going to be playing for 8 hours during this day. The odds of you actually sweating, I mean, it's going to be pretty high, even if it's going to be cold out there. So I mean, be considerate if you're going to be playing in groups, especially if you're going to be like in a car all day. Moving on though, let's go over the preparation you guys want to do the day before. So like I mentioned, there's a strong chance you may forget to do things. So I would strongly recommend setting reminders/alarms to charge your devices, pack your bag the day before. It is so easy to forget one thing or another, and then your whole day is basically messed up. For example, not charging your external battery could limit your playtime significantly. And for those of you out there who don't actually have a community, I would strongly recommend checking Campfire for any local meetups. It is going to be 100% worth making the drive in order to play with a group during events like this. Like, trust me when I say that. You're going to be playing for 8 hours. Like, having a group of people to play with is just going to make it so much more fun. Basically though, my point being here is that you want to try and plan as much as you can in advance. These types of events will go by quicker than you realize. And while taking breaks is really important, you also want to make sure that you're getting the most out of these events, especially if you ended up buying the event ticket. Anyways, with that being said, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go over in this video, but if you still want to check out some more content, especially how to actually manage your Pokemon storage, then check out this video right here. But before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all real soon in the next one.